JSB Talks Digital Transformation.
Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, digital change champions, and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke, and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. In this, the seventh in a series of special shows on digital transformation, I look at how senior executives should be managing their personal brand online. So, coming up in today's episode, I have a digital transformation conversation with Kerry Manning Colson, a personal branding expert. In Shoutouts, 3 personal branding examples worth taking note of. In JSB's column, can you separate personal and professional when it comes to personal branding online? And find out what tool you should be using to monitor your personal brand on the internet.
Digital Transformation Conversation.
I'm delighted to be joined on today's show by Kerry Manning Colson. Kerry is a personal branding specialist and a passionate marketer. She says that people buy from people, which means that we all need to distill our own brand and then work it. Kerry has worked in marketing for over 30 years as an entrepreneur and in the corporate world. She's also a professional speaker, a blogger, and the founder of the international Fabulous Woman group on Facebook. Kerry, you are very welcome to JSB Talks Digital. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm going to open our interview with a quote from you. So you are known to say, "I believe that brand is the core of the apple when it comes to marketing. Getting the brand right is the first step in product development, and this needs to be applied to ourselves." Now, when most people think of branding, Kerry, they often think about companies or products, but actually not themselves. So how important is personal branding in the professional world, even if you work for a large organisation and you're not self-employed?
I think it's huge. I think that what's happened in the last while with regard to social media means that everything has changed. And we all have a face on social media, even if we're a housewife. And I have great respect for anybody that works from home as a housewife because it's a hard job. But people buy from people, and it's gone past. Even if you take, for example, say of McDonald's, and you drive up to McDonald's to the window, and you have a bad experience from somebody, you might go to another McDonald's, but you're certainly not going to go back there, and you remember that experience because of the person that you actually connected with. And quite a few of the people I work with are working in a company, and maybe they want to climb the ladder. They might be wanting to look at a move. But we judge people. If you say, "Oh, have you heard of so and so?" The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to Google them. And what comes out is very often, there's a big difference between brand image and brand insistence. So, brand insistence is what people think of you, and brand image is what you want people to think of you. And there's quite often a big disconnect between the two. And so it's important. We all have a brand, whether we like it or not. The thing is, are we going to actually take control of it and use it to our advantage?
So social media, Kerry, has given us a remarkable opportunity to amplify our personal brands, but not everyone is a natural brand ambassador for themselves online. Like, are they? Often they make rookie mistakes. So what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people making that result in them actually damaging their personal brand?
Do you know, I think the biggest mistake people make, well, there's 2 mistakes. One is they try too hard, because your natural self is your best self. So if you have somebody that says gone on a Facebook Live and they're trying too hard and they're not comfortable with themselves, that would damage themselves. But the other thing people have is a fear of putting themselves out there. So the mistake would be to keep on saying, well, when I've had my hair cut, or when I have the new shelves in my office, or when I have this, then I'm going to actually start going out live, or then I'm going to start, when I feel more confident in my business, then I'll start putting myself out there. But truthfully, there's no time like the present. We live in a very fast-paced society. And you need to just do it. And I think there's a lovely Dr. Seuss quote that I love to use, and it's there's no one that's youer than you. I don't have the full quote in my head right now, but you have to be authentic, and that is your true brand is when you're at your most authentic self. And of course, there's a lot more to it than just being authentic, but ultimately that's the core of it. If you are authentically you, that will come across as genuine. And there's a part of, understanding who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to say. But I'd say the biggest mistake people make is just not putting themselves out there or, like I said, trying too hard.
And that's such a great piece of advice. And I also love the quote from Mark Schaefer when he says, don't wait for perfect because it will never happen. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Especially when it comes to social media, that authenticity is what actually attracts us to people who are doing Facebook Lives, who are vlogging on YouTube, or who are over on Periscope and putting themselves out there. So let's talk about what you should be doing online to promote yourself and get added value for your personal brand. So do you have any top tips for people working as employees in companies?
I think the first tip would be to be aware that you have a brand. If you're aware that you have a brand, all of a sudden everything starts to shift. And it could be that you have the choice whether you have a good brand or a bad brand. So I would say the first thing is to understand who you are and maybe do a little poll amongst your friends and ask people. One of the little tools that I use in my coaching practice is to say, take 5 words, give me 5 words that describe you. And it's normally fairly easy. And then I would ask, what 5 words would other people use to describe you? And then that becomes a little bit harder. And if you go and ask your friends and colleagues what words they would use to describe you, just 5 words, all of a sudden you'll have like a really rich little mine of words that you can do, because your brand is expressed online by your photo, but also by your bio, your Twitter bio, your Facebook bio, and more especially in business to business and for people who are working for somebody else, in your LinkedIn bio. That's really where you're putting it across. And those kind of words are so important. And I think the biggest mistake people do is they describe themselves in terms of what they do rather than who they are. And so stopping and saying, okay, who am I? I am hardworking. I've got a great sense of humor. I'm a passionate marketer like I have in my bio. That comes across far more. It's almost like showing a little bit of vulnerability and letting people see a little bit into your own self, rather than simply being a corporate person. Individuality is the best thing that shines through.
And it's easy for us, Kerry, because we're self-employed, but I want to talk about the thin blue line of personal versus professional branding and how that might overlap. I work with companies where very senior executives have social networks, and of course their work features quite prominently in their content. But does that mean they shouldn't talk about personal stuff because they're managing their online reputation in terms of their job?
I think it is a very thin blue line. What I advise clients that I have that are working any client I have, the first thing to do is to Google yourself and follow every single link on that first page of Google, because somebody else will. And I think it's okay. I think it's okay to show a little bit of vulnerability, show that you're a family man, show that you're passionate about rugby or you're interested in sport, because it might create that connection that's needed at some point in time. You're a person after all. But be very careful, because everything that I know you've spoken about online reputation quite a few times, and everything that you put out there on Google is there. And that's the difference between brand insistence and brand image. And, go down to, say, for example, Pinterest, and you might have a board on Pinterest that just really doesn't sit with your brand. And you could make that board secret, or you might have, you might think, oh, well, I've got my private Facebook, but nobody looks at that. But they do, because people Google people.
The world of social has evolved dramatically over the past 12 months. And in our businesses, Kerry, we're looking really forensically, I guess, at social and live video. How vital is video when it comes to personal branding? And do you think that senior executives should go front of screen and embrace it and show their human side?
Instinctively, I'm going to say yes, but I think it depends on the individual. And I think this is really what distilling a personal brand is about. You need to know where you are in your completely comfortable, authentic self. And if you are a senior executive that is, maybe the CFO, and you're not in your comfortable, authentic self, speaking out in front of people, and it's not part of your job, then I don't think that you necessarily have to. If you're going to feel completely inauthentic speaking on video, then you shouldn't. But I think that video, and especially as if you look, one of my big kind of watchwords at the moment is how do people consume information, and I'm running a focus group at the moment, and it's really interesting the different age groups and how people consume information. And I mean, you'll know as well as I do that video is huge. People consume information on video. But it's not as predominant on LinkedIn as, for example, it is on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so I think it really depends on the person and it depends on the brand. And that's, I think, this comes back to why it's so important to know what your brand is and to be conscious of it. Because I see also people, the latest thing on social media is this. Well, we must all dive into that. But maybe not, because maybe it doesn't fit your brand, it doesn't fit your market, it doesn't fit what you're trying to do. And I would be a big person for strategy. So I'd say, go back and say, okay, what's your brand? What's your strategy? What tools are you going to use?
Finally, Kerry, do you think organisations who are maybe going into this arena for the first time with their staff should actually have guidance notes or policies in place so that everybody knows where they stand? Because I do fear that employees are afraid maybe to engage so publicly on social media because of any impact it might have on their job.
I think guidelines are a great idea. I think it's a really sensible thing to do, because then, it's brand on brand. The company has a brand and they have their brand image. And so I think it is a good thing to have guidelines, because otherwise, people might go ahead and do it, and as you said, they might be fearful of doing it because it might impact on their job. But, as you said, for the self-employed, there's one side of things, but for people who work for other people, you're working within a brand, within an organisation, and I think guidelines would be a great idea.
Kerry, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and personal branding is one of my favourite topics. So if you are a fabulous woman like me, then I'd really encourage you to join Kerry's Facebook group, and it's facebook.com/groups/fabulous woman, and she's also on LinkedIn. Thank you, Kerry, and I will talk to you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Joanne.
Shoutouts.
In this part of the show, I give shout-outs to brands, organisations or individuals whose work online is worth talking about. In today's show, I'm sharing 3 excellent personal branding case studies so you can get ideas about how you might approach your own strategy.
1.
Emmerich Ernaud is the CEO of Agorapulse, but has done a remarkable job of building his personal brand and, in my opinion, successfully marries professional and personal brilliantly. He is very open when discussing his company and in fact blogs frequently about it. His most recent blog post shared the company's monthly recurring revenue figures, the tools he and his team use to perform daily operational, sales and marketing tasks, and he also blogs about his approach to people management and how he's built a global remote office with staff dotted all over the world. This open and friendly approach works very well, and we get a real sense of the man fronting the company. You can follow Emmerich on Medium, where he blogs at medium.com/agorapulse-stories. Also, if you're in the market for a social media management and monitoring tool, have a look at agorapulse.com.
2.
If you are a social media nerd like me, then you will certainly know Mary Smith. You will know her distinctive Scottish accent and her quirky and friendly Facebook livecasts. But what you might not know is that Mari runs a hugely successful social media agency and works with clients right across the globe. I saw Mari present on stage at last year's Social Media Marketing World Conference in San Diego. And she told the story of how she built her personal brand in the late noughties when Facebook was in its infancy. Now, she's one of the world's leading voices on Facebook marketing, and she attributes her success to her ability to build her brand online. Find out more about Mari and her work on her website at marismith.com, and that's Mari, M-A-R-I.
3.
Digital marketing influencer Mark Schaefer has a new book out called Known. I've ordered my copy and can't wait for it to arrive. The book is described as the handbook for building and unleashing your personal brand in the digital age. In today's world, there is a permanent advantage to becoming known in your field. Those who are known get the customers, the better jobs, and the invitations to exclusive opportunities. But in his book, Mark provides a step-by-step plan followed by the most successful people in diverse careers like banking, education, real estate, construction, fashion, digital marketing, and more. So with these amazing case studies and dozens of exercises and inspiring stories, Known is the first book of its kind providing a path to personal business success in the digital age. You can buy the book on Amazon.com, and I have a link to it on the blog associated with this podcast. If you are a senior executive holding a key role in your organisation, don't be afraid to develop your own personal branding strategy. You should also have a conversation with the leadership team about the company's approach to this and see if there is a parallel strategy that they are rolling out. If you want to know more about personal branding for the workplace and in the digital age, don't hesitate to drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie.
JSB Talks.
In today's column, I pose the question, can you separate personal and professional when it comes to online branding? The short answer is yes, you can. However, this has to come with a health warning. You must ask your employer if they have guidelines or a policy in place when it comes to discussing your own role or company business on your social networks. Some organisations actually own the social media accounts of their employees. For example, the CEO of a company's Twitter account might belong to the company, and if that CEO moves on, then it likely will be handed over to the incoming guy or lady. Proprietary, sensitive or confidential information should never be shared online, even if your workplace has a liberal policy. Common sense should prevail at all times. If you are embarking on a personal branding strategy, be sure to keep the same name, profile pic, imagery and look across your social profiles. Your bio is also extremely important. And if we were thinking about making our mark on Google, then we must also think about search engine optimization. So consider keywords when writing your heading, your descriptor, and long-form content on LinkedIn. Visual branding must be taken seriously. Use the same headshot, and please don't use a cropped photo taken at a wedding. Use the same photo across all platforms and make sure your design and branding is consistent. Hire a graphic designer and get a brand audit complete. Or if you have a designer at your company, maybe consult him or her. Remember, your brand should reflect your personality. Don't build up something online that doesn't reflect you offline. In fact, in my opinion, there is no such thing as offline versus online. They are one and the same thing in the digital age. I have been cognizant of building my personal brand for over a decade now, and I can safely say it was one of the smartest decisions I have ever made. My personal brand has proved valuable in securing me speaking opportunities, consulting jobs, as well as valuable online visibility. JSB and the red shoes have become synonymous with me now, and it helps show a little bit of my quirky personality. If you would like to have a digital transformation conversation with me, simply drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie. Remember, everything starts with a story or a conversation.
Social media tool of the week.
The social media tool that will save your personal brand online is Google. Yes, the god of search engines, Google is the most important place to monitor our personal brand. Did you know Google now processes over 40,000 search queries every second, which translates to over 3.5 billion searches per day and 1.2 trillion searches per year worldwide? But first things first, if you've never Googled yourself, then make it the first thing that you do after finishing listening to this podcast. Did you know that the content shared on most social networks is now indexed on Google? So even if you haven't posted content about yourself, third-party information from social networks and other sites will link back to you. However, if you don't like what the internet is saying about you, you can take action and change it. 87% of the information on the internet about us, we have actually submitted it. It's a good idea to do a search on yourself incognito. This means that you log out of all Google accounts. This will give you a better indication of what others see when they Google you. Incognito mode opens a new window where you can browse the internet in private without Google Chrome saving the sites you visit. You can switch between an incognito window and any regular Chrome browsing windows you have open. You'll only be in incognito mode when you're using the incognito window. So off you go to google.com and see what the internet is saying about you. Thanks for tuning in to the 7th episode of JSB Talks Digital Transformation. As always, I have everything discussed on today's show on my blog at digitaltraining.ie. Make sure you never miss an episode of JSB Talks Digital. You can subscribe on your smartphone on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also subscribe on SoundCloud. I'd love your feedback on this series, so be sure to tweet me your thoughts to @tweets by JSB or post a comment on our Facebook page, Digital Training Institute. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke. This is JSB Talks Digital Transformation. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
JSB Talks Digital Transformation.